Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I'm going to get into the Israel stuff here in just a little bit, and actually to kind of kick this off, first of all, let me just make a quick mention of apparently that stupid No Kings protest thing. That fizzled out rather quick. Didn't seem to last very long, filled with a bunch of old hippies, and they all went home and took a nap after about an hour. Isn't that funny? Anyway, moving on here, just very quickly, again last week also, as I mentioned previously, you had a group of sanctuary state so-called governors, clear communists without a doubt, testifying in front of the House Judiciary Committee, or Oversight Committee, my apologies. And I just wanted to play this quick little piece of audio from Nancy Mace. Now, if you've listened to the show, you know I'm not a fan of hers. I don't like any of these Israel tools. I don't care what aisle, or side of the aisle, rather, that they sit on. They give themselves away instantly as being bought and sold by Israel, and the only reason that they are in office is because they're blackmailed and they've received money directly from the Jewish lobby. So again, keeping in mind that this is actually, again, a House Oversight Committee hearing, specifically having to do with communist governors, specifically Tim Walz and Pritzker and Hochul of both Illinois and New York as well. Out of the gate, this was Nancy Mace's first line of questioning and her direct line of questioning. Again, this has nothing to do with sanctuary cities. This has nothing to do with illegal aliens. She's just trying to play an I gotcha moment. And I can't wait for the moment again when a more knowledgeable individual receives one of these questions, regardless of which person it comes from on which side of the aisle, and they just educate these individuals and tell them straight up that the questions that they're asking are false. Or that they answer, of course, these ridiculous questions by saying that's completely not true. I can't wait for that to be the case. In my opinion, this is stone cold proof again that the Jewish lobby has all of our politicians by the throat. And this eventually has to come to an end, because if it doesn't, we're just going to continue to be owned again by blackmailers in the Jewish lobby, and it's not something that can happen. So here's Nancy Mace. Again, this was on June 12th, but give her a listen very quickly here in 3, 2, 1.
Chairman, welcome to the unofficial 2028 Democrat presidential primary right here on stage at the Oversight Committee. Governor Newsom must be seething. The three of you beat him to the stage, but he's a little busy right now defending illegals and defending Antifa, torching what is left of Los Angeles. Governor Walz knows the playbook. In 2020, he rolled out the red carpet for anarchists while Minnesotans watched their neighborhoods burn. You've turned your states into sanctuaries for illegals. You've done more to shield MS-13 than to protect the single mom working 2 jobs in Chicago, Queens, or Minneapolis. And you've worked harder against ICE than with them. So Governor Walz, and boy, does that feel nice to say the word governor, my first question is for you. Did you know the Nazis killed 6 million Jews during the Holocaust? It's a yes or no question. Did you know the Nazis killed 6 million Jews during the Holocaust?
Pushing my button to answer.
Okay.
Yes, I believe that's historic.
Okay, would you agree the Holocaust is the most horrific atrocity in human history? Yes or no?
I think the Holocaust ranks amongst them, yes.
Did you know the Nazi Gestapo imprisoned, tortured, and murdered Jews by the hundreds of thousands and committed genocide against the Jews? Did you know that?
I do know they operated as secret.
Did you know ICE has done none of that? Yes or no?
Operated as a secret police force?
No, that's not the question. Did you know that ICE has not committed genocide against anyone?
Yes, I do know that.
Okay. Do you apologize for your disgusting comparison of ICE to the Gestapo, who killed hundreds of thousands of Jews during the Holocaust?
As a history teacher?
Yes or no is the question.
A historical comparison.
You're a governor. You understand what the question is. It's yes or no. Will you apologize for what you said about ICE, comparing them to Gestapo?
To identify who they are when they operate, to not use unmarked.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, this governor, or honorable, can't answer the question. Do you believe the Nuremberg trials were a good exercise in holding the Nazis accountable? Yes or no?
I think due process.
Okay, so are you calling for ICE agents to be brought to a tribunal under the threat of death by comparing them to the Gestapo?
Everyone is afforded due process.
What don't you understand about yes or no? Like, what can't you comprehend about yes or no questions?
I
Do you
understand
still want
being
to
a governor
abolish
is a
ICE?
different
Do you
job.
still want to abolish ICE? Yes or no?
I said I wanted to abolish ICE.
Didn't you march in a rally calling for ICE's abolishment?
Not that I can recall, Congress.
Well, according to widespread media reports, you did.
And the media is always correct.
How do you rate Kamala Harris's job as border czar? I want a number between 1 and 10. How was she as border czar?
I wouldn't have a way to measure that. I was not in the administration.
Weren't you her running mate for vice president?
As in the campaign.
And you
Wasn't part of
can't
the
rate her role as border czar on a scale of 1 to 10. Was she great at 10 or was she a 1? Terrible.
I think her proposal that she put forward to make sure we had the bipartisan immigration.
It wasn't bipartisan. Did you ever personally speak with Kamala about Joe Biden's cognitive collapse?
I'm just going to end it there. I think you get my point. Again, I understand what she's trying to do, and I'm not defending Walls, and I'm not defending Nancy Mace either. This is the problem. The problem is that these politicians are seeking to get Americans to pick a side. They're two sides of the same coin. They're both inaccurate. They're both wrong. So again, as a historic context here, I'll answer her questions as if I was the one being asked, specifically the ones regarding, again, World War II and the National Socialist DAP Party. First of all, the Gestapo, as it were, was a police force that was ordered to, again, find communist businesses that were not closing their doors when they were supposed to be closing their doors because communism was criminalized, as it should have been. That was the point. Now again, did some of them destroy property and force those business owners out of their property? Yeah, they did. In some cases, they didn't. They would just paint a Star of Remphan on a window and say, a communist works here. As if, again, to alert the public, you might not want to shop here because a communist works here. That's the way that it was back then. That was allowed because, again, communism was illegal. And it was deemed illegal that you were engaging in treason and sedition if you were a communist. That was the entire point. Now, we do the same thing here in the United States. We have the right to put up a sign in our yard that points in a particular direction of either a neighbor or someone in an adjacent house or whomever that says a pedophile lives here. We get to do that. That's lawful. It, of course, is not lawful for us to approach their property and paint it on the side of their wall and say, a pedophile lives in this house or, works in this building or whatever. I mean, we can't necessarily do that, but we can stand on public property and we can alert the public to, again, individuals who are engaging in illegality. That's allowed. But all this 6 million stuff, it's beyond absurd. Again, she's showing her complete ignorance on the subject. And again, she's trying to do an I gotcha moment. And it's just stale. It's just a stale approach. It doesn't work anymore. Again, the facts are out there. There are people who have watched Europa: The Last Battle and people who have not. I would simply define society almost on that basis alone. There are those who have watched it and those who haven't. And that's it. There are those, again, who have researched the subject and those who have not. Nancy Mace clearly has not, and she's showing everybody that she hasn't, that her ability to learn only goes so far, and it only goes so far as her own pocketbook. But that's the same with the very people that she's questioning, which is the absolute irony of the entire situation. They are two heads of the same snake, and it's just disgusting. So, I just want to kick off with that very quickly. Again, until people like her and people like Governor Walz are no longer in office and not allowed to hold office any longer because of their just sheer ignorance on American issues or geopolitical issues or historic issues, then, until those people are gone, we're not learning anything. We're just recycling the same old trash time and time again. We have to get under the foot of communism because what you're seeing here and what you're seeing in that exchange is how communism has its boot on both sides of the political aisle. And as you know, who created communism? It wasn't the Chinese. I'll just leave it at that. Now let me move on to this. Again, of course, the bombing that's been going on back and forth between Iran and Israel. I wish I were upset about it. I'm not. Really don't care. Watching Tel Aviv buildings drop to the ground doesn't upset me in the slightest. And frankly, it shouldn't. If you knew what they did on 9/11, you wouldn't bat an eye either. And you know what happened on 9/11 because you listen to this show. So again, you're in the know, which is good. But the fact is that I really don't care one way or another. Again, is this being done to draw out the bad people from Israel? Probably. Is it being done to draw out the bad people from Iran? Probably. But again, Israel started this entire fiasco. They're behind all of it. There's this particular, again, of course, they were the first ones to shoot too. I mean, that should go without saying. But let me mention this too. And again, there have to be other dimensions to this which are unknown to us, which is almost always going to be the case. I mean, there's no way that we have all of the intel that's available regarding the people who are actually inside of these countries running these countries. But this was from news.antiwar.com. And the article was titled, Asian Leaders Condemn Israeli Strikes on Iran. This is brief. It's kind of a neat little history and just a nice little summary here. It says top officials from countries across Asia have denounced Israel's attack on Iran, among them Russia, China, Japan, Iraq, Oman, and Saudi Arabia, with many slamming the assault as an act of aggression and a severe breach of international law. Now here's the interesting part. America is allies with all of those countries that I just mentioned. All of the countries, again, that just immediately denounced Israel's attack on Iran, we are doing business with those countries. Not to mention Donald Trump's trip over to the Middle East. I posed this question online. What were those discussions about? Again, he didn't go to Israel and touch the wall. He didn't go over to Israel and kiss the ring. But what he did do is he went to a bunch of Middle Eastern countries and worked with these individuals and talked about wanting peace. I bet behind closed doors they talked about Israel and what Israel was going to do, and how they would do well to not get involved, because if these two countries want to blow the shit out of each other, well, they can do that. But in the end, Israel is going to look like the guilty party in all of this, because the vast majority of Americans don't want war. You also, of course, had Tucker Carlson talking with Steve Bannon about this very thing, and the look on Steve Bannon's face is absolutely hilarious, because he looks like a guy who's overwhelmed with the truth, and that he's been wrong in the past regarding Israel. They're not our greatest ally. They were, again, behind 9/11. They were responsible for endless attacks and false flags, and Tucker Carlson knows this. And so Tucker Carlson, again, interviews Steve Bannon for his own show, Tucker Carlson's show, and then, of course, Steve Bannon has Tucker Carlson on his show, and the two of them have a nice exchange. And they know full well that this is a bad look at face value anyway. One-dimensionally at face value, it's a bad look for Donald Trump. And it's a bad look for America because, again, those two guys, Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon, certainly Tucker Carlson, I think, more than Steve Bannon, has a pretty good pulse check when it comes to what's going on in America and what Americans want and what we don't want. Again, we didn't want World War II. That's not what we wanted. There was political division in America, and I've been over all of that and why that all went down the way that it went down. The whole Pearl Harbor fiasco and that entire false flag, again, was exactly what it was. It was designed to be a false flag to get America's attention and to garner more support for going into Europe, which we should not have done. And at the exact same time, what's going on now in our country and what's going on overseas just doesn't have the same flavor anymore. Too many people have learned. Too many people are awake. Too many people have read too much, seen too many things, created too much content that is truthful and accurate, and people aren't buying. They're just not buying it, which is fantastic. But again, when Donald Trump engages in any kind of a personal attack, whether it be against Tulsi Gabbard for openly saying Iran has no need for a nuclear weapon and there's no proof that they're wanting to build one, and at the exact same time, Donald Trump makes fun of Tucker Carlson for having low ratings or something along those lines. Again, I would say at face value, it looks very, very petty. Unless, of course, there's another angle to all of this. Unless, of course, that name-calling is just a game. It's quite possible it is. But again, I just don't think that that kind of game playing is productive. Again, it's been said numerous times before, the best propaganda to propagate, again, a pro approach to particular things is to tell the truth. Propaganda is not designed to be a lie. That's the worst form of propaganda. That's evil propaganda. The best propaganda that the American people can take is the truth. Are they going to flip out if they hear the truth? Of course they will. Will they accept it initially? Of course they won't. But as those lines of division become broader and there becomes more space in between the truth and the lie, ultimately the truth always prevails. So I don't know if the name calling works. Again, it could be the art of war being used. It could be a number of other tactics, the art of the deal, 1,000 other things. I'm not denying that angle either. I'm just saying that, again, at face value, it makes people look at Donald Trump and not like his approach, because a lot of people like Tucker Carlson. Me personally, and I've said this before, although I don't know if I've ever said it on the show, but I've privately said it to people I know. I wouldn't be surprised if Tucker Carlson runs for president someday, and I mean that. It's highly possible he would. Lord knows he has plenty of experience. Lord knows he's been in the media before, and now he's on the truth-telling side of things, and he's willing to hear a lot of different angles, and he plays middle of the road by and large, but again, he's a peacemaker also, and he never stops learning, and he never stops unlearning either. That's a really good quality to have. So it could be, again, the back and forth and all of the name calling and everything else regarding everybody involved here is just a game. Could be it's just deception and it's designed, again, just to confuse people. But anyway, with all of that aside, I digress. This article goes on. It says, during a regular press briefing on Friday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Wan, if that's how you pronounce their name, warned that the Israeli strikes could have grave consequences for the region, adding that Beijing opposes actions that violate Iran's sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity, as well as moves that escalate tensions and enlarge conflicts. Russia's foreign minister condemned the Israeli attacks in even harsher terms, deeming it a violation of the Charter of the United Nations and international law. Well, of course it is. It says, quote, unprovoked military strikes against a sovereign UN member state, its citizens sleeping peaceful cities, and nuclear energy infrastructure facilities are categorically unacceptable. The international community cannot afford to be indifferent to such atrocities that destroy peace and damage regional and international security, the ministry said in a statement. And again, you can tell immediately anybody who openly comes out and says that Israel is just defending themselves, that just means that those individuals are blackmailed and completely bought and sold. They just have an invisible gun to their head almost all of the time from basically the Israel lobby, among other individuals as well. Again, it concluded here, it says those statements were more in line with reactions from U.S. top officials who have praised the Israeli operations even while maintaining that there was no U.S. involvement. Because again, Tulsi Gabbard openly testified to that, and then of course Donald Trump came back and said, well, I don't care what she thinks. Well, look, somebody knows what the truth is. Somebody knows what's really going on. Are there bad people in Iran? Of course there are. But at the exact same time, there were bad people in all of those countries that were ultimately toppled by our bombs at basically the direction of Israel. Iraq, of course, Syria recently, Libya, the list is endless. But it can't happen anymore. So I'm not panicking in any way. That's certainly not it. I don't think that's a healthy approach to take for anybody. We're over here. We're by and large safer than they are. Really don't care. If Mossad, the Mossad headquarters has been blown to pieces in Tel Aviv, who cares? Not interested. Again, watching that footage is a bit refreshing to some extent because Tel Aviv hasn't been hit this hard ever. And yet, it's kind of being allowed to happen, is it not? I mean, we're not really protecting Israel right now. They don't have an Iron Dome. All of that is a lie. They really don't have any kind of self-defense. All of that is a lie. Netanyahu is apparently cut and run. He's somewhere in Greece, apparently. He's not even there. So he's killing his own people and allowing that to take place. These people are showing exactly what cowards they are. And the fact, again, that they pick fights with bigger people that they can't possibly defend their own people against. not without our help. But it's not our fight. It's not our problem. Again, getting involved overseas in any kind of a conflict has to be an act of Congress. There has to be some kind of a vote. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out. I would venture to guess that the vast majority of Congress on both sides of the aisle would vote to protect Israel. That right there should show everybody, again, where the blackmailers are and who the real problem is and what the real problem is. But immediately, again, this entire storyline has shifted onto the FBI apparently having endless information claiming that the Chinese plotted to create fake mail-in ballots in 2020. Now, we've known this entire time. When it came to, again, the stolen election of 2020, we know this. We know that there was ample fraud. It was computer fraud, mail-in ballot fraud, fake paper fraud, fake ID fraud, the whole thing. So again, is that story right now a distraction? Is that designed to get people's eyes off of bombs being dropped in the Middle East? It's possible. It's highly possible. It's not like it's new to us. It's new to the left. They're completely unaware of that, but we've known that for years. We've known about that since back in, again, 2020, the latter half of 2020 after the election. Although we knew beforehand, too. We knew that they were going to try to steal it and that it might even be allowed to be stolen in order to catch individuals, again, breaking the law here domestically. Again, it's possible it's just another distraction. The only thing that anybody really is waiting for is accountability. We still haven't seen it yet. People aren't being arrested. We're not seeing politicians be arrested for treason and sedition. I understand, again, these are not things that can happen in small courts. Can't even happen in federal courts. Again, I'm fully aware there's just too much corruption and too much misdirection and too many lies and a number of other things. And it's exhausting. And it really is, I think, weighing on a great deal of Americans, and rightfully so. But this, again, is what happens when you kick the can down the road. I understand that things have to be done by the book and they have to be done legally, but also you have to rip the Band-Aid off. And just, again, this slow pull, and then, whoops, we'll just put it back on for a little while, and then we'll slowly start to pull it away, and then, we're just going to put it back on again. That's not helping anybody. It really isn't. And again, I'm not pretending I'm even in charge or that I know the full picture, full scope of everything that's taking place. I just don't. I just find the lack of accountability to be astounding. Take, for example, this Minnesota shooter. I'm sure everybody heard of this story over the weekend, rather briefly anyway. This individual, again, dressing up to look like a cop, completely mentally ill. I think that goes without saying, wearing a rubber mask and allegedly killing a couple of people along with a dog. And it just so happens that this person was appointed by Tim Walz. And he, of all people, immediately came out and said, well, this is clearly a political hit job, and then was like, whoops, I apparently appointed this person a while back, and they no longer worked for me, and whoops, I shouldn't have mentioned that. Again, you basically have Democrats killing Democrats because some Democrats vote for illegal aliens to not get Medicare. As the story goes, apparently, I don't know. There are too many holes in that particular story to even hone in on exactly what was happening. Clearly a false flag. Again, certainly a mentally ill individual, possibly MK Ultra controlled, who's to say, but too confusing. At least there are more ICE raids taking place, and these are not stopping, which is a good thing. Apparently the gloves have been taken off here regarding ICE, and more ICE detentions are taking place, and this is a fantastic thing. Again, over the weekend, I also saw a particular report that said something like Donald Trump's administration was easing the ICE involvement when it came to farmers and restaurant workers and individuals of that profession and those professions. I sort of hope that that's not the case either. But again, who's to really say? I just know that, again, they have the right to arrest just about whoever they want as long as they're illegal, and that's good enough for me as far as I'm concerned. Get them all out. Again, if a person wants to work here legally and not break the law, I'm all for it. Just get in line. That's all. Again, if you have a temporary work visa, that's one thing as long as it's lawful. If it's fraudulent paperwork or you have a fraudulent ID, well, then you're breaking the law. But if you're here lawfully, even for a small period of time, so be it. But just make sure that you get in line to become a full-fledged citizen at some point, or else you're overstaying your work visa and it's time for you to hit the road. So that's kind of my stance on it. But let me mention this because this is a perfect example of, again, who exactly needs to go and be kicked out of this country. Believe it or not, and this was reported on last week, congressional aides and any aide who works for a congressman or woman or even a senator or anybody again in Washington, apparently those individuals are allowed to be illegal aliens. Now, the interesting part about this, of course, is that Machiavelli warned us about this back in the 1500s. In that book, The Prince, which again was recommended to me by a listener of the show, and they know who they are, and thank you for recommending it. It's absolutely fantastic and certainly timely, even today, is he openly says in that book again that you cannot have individuals from foreign countries live in your country, advocate for their country, in particular in political positions, and be invited into your country by politicians and expect those individuals to actually advocate for your home country and not their own. They will always advocate for their own. You're basically inviting in an infiltration instead of an invasion. And then the invasion comes later, which of course we've already seen that. That's already transpired over the course of any number of years here in the United States, dating back, of course, to the Marxist infiltration within our country, and then, of course, everything that we're seeing now that Marxists thoroughly enjoy, like illegal aliens taking over everything, and, of course, all of the degeneracy that comes with it. But last week there was a House resolution that was put forth, and it was titled House Resolution 500, amending the rules of the House of Representatives to require employees of the House to be subject to criminal background checks conducted by the United States Capitol Police and for other purposes. Again, this is designed from a representative, a Kat Kamarack from Florida, in order to basically get illegal aliens away from congressmen and women and to keep them from being their legal aides and or assistants and or secretaries or what have you. Because that just can't happen. Again, it means that those politicians and the aides that are working for them are not going to be advocating for the United States. They're going to be advocating for their home countries. So send them back. Americans should work in American government. Shouldn't be the other way around. Again, Ilhan Omar, she's not an American citizen, and yet she's still here. Get rid of her. Why, again, I don't understand why she's still around. It's amazing to me. Thomas Massie also apparently put forth some particular resolution seeking to, again, I believe, remove dual citizenship from anybody in government, that they need to renounce their other citizenship in basically whatever other country they have citizenship in other than the United States. So basically pick one. And if you have dual citizenship, you're not allowed to run for public office. I'm all for that too. This is common sense stuff. The simple fact, again, that that's even being allowed to take place should prove to people that, again, our country is completely upside down. So I'll just wrap this up geopolitically. Again, I'm not saying I'm a magnificent analyst on any of what's going on right now. I just know this. If you get bogged down with it, it'll overwhelm you. And if people start to panic too much and try to control too much of what they really can't control, it's going to bother you. I have no doubt that the art of war and the art of the deal are in play. Again, there's no way that individuals within government who are on the good side of things here don't know what the American public really wants. And we don't want war. We don't want foreign wars. Our problems are domestic. There's no doubt about that. We want peace worldwide. That's what we want. That's been on the menu here for quite some time. That's what we voted for. Killing bad guys is one thing. Advocating for peace, of course, that has to happen as well. But we just don't want war. We want the laws in our own country to be simplified. We want the right thing to happen, and we want accountability. That's it. That's not a tall ask. That's rather straightforward. Speaking of a lack of accountability, let me get into education now. There's 3 minutes here of this particular story out of the Knoxville, Tennessee area. This is a Blount County teacher facing dismissal charges over disturbing and inappropriate behavior. There's a particular hook to this story, however, which is highly disturbing. And it's the fact that this female teacher, who again was basically a teacher's aide, who was sexually assaulting handicapped students, was allowed to keep their job and then transfer to another place where they held basically the same position, even though those charges were essentially being hidden by the school district themselves. Again, the simple fact that a person like this isn't removed immediately, instantly again placed on either unpaid or paid administrative leave, forced to resign, what have you, and then criminally charged instantly, should tell people how deep the problem is with the entire education system in our country. They are not lawful. They are criminal organizations. Give this a listen here. This is from WBIR Channel 10 out of Tennessee in 3, 2, 1.
Well, tonight we are digging into allegations of abusive and inappropriate behavior by a Blount County teacher towards students with special needs.
And when we allow teacher misbehavior to go unpunished, we not only possibly place students in harm's way, but we also erode the public's trust in those numerous Blount County Schools employees who would never dream of harming or humiliating a child.
Blount County Director of Schools is calling for the formal dismissal of Catherine Goins from the district. Allegations of her actions date back to 2020, and we have team coverage, including official reaction to the claims. But we start with 10 News Blount County reporter Libby Cunningham as she brings us up to speed with the latest. And we do want to warn you, some of the details of this case may be difficult to hear.
Dozens and dozens of pages of complaints, emails from concerned coworkers, and allegations that a teacher touched a student's private parts at school. And she still has a job. Katie Goins is at the center of an investigation by Blount County Schools. Emails and written documents show a pattern of people complaining about her behavior towards students with special needs. Allegations of inappropriate behavior were made here at Union Grove Middle School. Now, she started here in 2010, and she was promoted in 2016 to a special education teacher. 3 years later is when the allegations of the inappropriate behavior were first noted. Emails from school employees to district leadership show they voiced concerns about her conduct with students, noting she took young kids to the bathroom, touched their private parts, and tried to, quote, arouse young children. The behavior reportedly happened over 50 times. In August 2020, Principal John Webb sent out an email saying she was leaving Union Grove Middle School. That's when she started here at Heritage High School. The Department of Children's Services had an active investigation looking into her at that point in time, but she didn't receive any disciplinary action. A spokesperson with DCS tells me they're looking into her case again. She got tenure with the district 2 years later. Then last year, the district opened a human resources audit into any investigations involving sexual misconduct at the school district. Earlier this year, her father, Fred Goins, resigned after decades on the school board, citing health issues. And that brings us up to speed. The new director of schools, Justin Ridge, was just briefed about what happened within the past month. At a school board meeting this week, he said he wanted her to be fired.
Let me be clear. What happened in that classroom was wrong. And the fact that this conduct was not dealt with appropriately by the leadership at the time is also wrong.
In a 70-page document the district sent us last night. Those documents show she has been suspended without pay, but she is still on the payroll until the end of the month. Now, according to the Tennessee State Board of Education, she has 30 days to demand a full hearing about the charges before an impartial hearing officer.
I only have one question. Where is law enforcement? Where's law enforcement? This has nothing to do with employment. This has to do with law enforcement. You have a special education aide, a teacher's aide to a special education teacher. giving tug jobs to kids in wheelchairs. And she hasn't been arrested. Where's the police report? Where's the investigation? They have the proof. They have the documentation. They have the complaints. Arrest her. Throw her in jail. These places cannot investigate their own employees. It's absurd. Law enforcement supersedes any employment status. You just arrest the person. You charge them with a crime. This is not hard. But this goes on in the business all of the time. All of the time. That's an instant police report from the parents. That's an instant arrest. Yes, they can do a quick investigation, fine. Read the complaints where the individual, again, has been around children and done what they've, again, been accused of doing, and detain them. Question them. Say, you don't have to speak without a lawyer, but we're charging you with a crime. At least one. We'll probably add some in the future, depending on the more evidence that we receive in the situation at hand, but we're charging you with a crime. The cops are taking a back seat on that case alone, and that's not the only one where they take a back seat. This kind of stuff happens all of the time. Now, switching gears slightly, although this is right up there with the retaliatory measures that school districts engage in, certainly against citizens, more specifically parents. But Sandy Adams tossed this my way, and this is a particular clip on, Gabriel, at the Gabriel72 on X. And it's an 8-minute video here of a woman describing, a mother describing her experience with the school district where she was sending her children, where she was specifically, again, asking for the curriculum. And in typical fashion, the school district did not want to divulge what they were teaching children. And so she kept asking questions, and she even did exactly what they asked through open records requests, and then they started to sue her. This is her again at another board meeting describing her situation regarding this, and it was titled, "School Threatens to Sue Mother for Asking About Class Curriculum. What Happens Next Should Give Her Hope." Again, this was from Trending Politics, so for the next 8 minutes, give her a listen here, speaking to the public and apparently to another board. In 3, 2, 1.
I'm a stay-at-home mom. I enrolled my daughter in kindergarten this past spring, and I wanted to know what my daughter was learning. When I called the school and asked, they said that they don't teach, they don't call children boys and girls. When I asked whether they taught gender theory, they said that they refrained from using gender terminology in the classroom and that they embed the values of gender identity into the classroom at every grade at an age-appropriate level. When I asked about critical race theory, they said that they teach 5-year-olds on the first Thanksgiving this ridiculous question where they say, what could have been done differently on the first Thanksgiving? When I asked more questions, they wouldn't answer me and they stonewalled me. They told me to submit public records requests. This was the only way I could get my questions answered. And when I did submit those public records requests, and when they did know that I had a lot of questions, my own school district turned around, put my name on the agenda of a public school board meeting, and publicly threatened to sue me for submitting the public records request that they told me to submit. They had a 5-hour school board meeting where they publicly bullied, harassed me. They called me racist. They let other people attack me in public comment. They debated openly my moral character and my political motivations. And they had never met me before. And this was my first school board meeting that I had ever been to in my life. They even hired a PR firm to publicly defame me in the national media. It's now 8 months later. I still don't know what the current curriculum is. I'm still in, oh, sorry, I left out a really important part. 2 months after my school board publicly threatened to sue me, the teachers union then did sue me. They're suing me because they don't want information coming out about my public records request that I had requested and that the school told me to request. So now it's 8 months later. I still don't have the current curriculum. I still don't have answers to my questions. I'm still in litigation, and my kindergartner is now in private school. What they did to me was government abuse of power, just because I wanted to know what was being taught. And no parent should be afraid that they're going to be publicly attacked and sued just to know what their kids are learning in school. So here is the bottom line and what I've learned, and that is that public records requests don't work. Parents cannot afford to buy the information that their school wants to sell them. And if they're me, they get sued just for asking for that information. But here's the other important part. Public records requests don't work for schools either. The schools are spending money just to respond to these public records requests. My school spent $20,000 responding to 300 public records requests just to give estimates. There's a mom in this audience who sent almost 700 public records requests to her school district. How much is that going to cost? And that's just for the cost of providing estimates. This isn't for the cost of compiling, redacting, gathering information, forwarding for further legal review, responding to lawsuits arising out of the public records request process. It's not fair to schools and it's not fair to parents. This is a never-ending hamster wheel benefiting only one party, and that's the lawyers that are giving out these estimates to parents that can't afford them, and then they never get that information. This is a Kafkaesque bureaucratic problem with a really easy legislative solution: academic transparency. You can vindicate the rights, the absolute rights of parents to know what their kids are being taught by passing this bill. But you can also protect public school from squandering their education dollars on this never-ending cycle of getting public records requests and handing out estimates. And it's just this cycle of wash, rinse, repeat. Please pass this bill. If not for parents, pass this bill for public school, and you can save them from themselves. We need our education dollars for our students. We don't need it to be squandered on this petulant standoff with parents who just want to know what their kids are learning in school.
Thank you. I have a question. So I just wanted to make sure I heard you right. So your school district said when all you wanted to know was what's the curriculum that your kid's being taught, to put a public records request before you can see that. I just want to make sure that I got that right.
Yeah, so I had to submit a public records request just for the curriculum. And in fact, when I submitted that, they gave me old, outdated curriculum that's no longer used or taught. And I had to file a complaint with the Attorney General alleging that they gave me non-responsive documents. That was 8 months ago. I still don't have a response from the Attorney General. And their argument is actually, well, this is Nicole's fault because she didn't request current curriculum. So these are the games they play with these public records requests, and our children's education is not a game. We just want to know what's being taught. And, you know, we're all parents. We're not all lawyers. I happen to be a lawyer. I don't practice anymore. I stay home. But, you know, parents don't have the skills that, you know, a lawyer parent has just to know what their kids are learning. You shouldn't have to be fighting with these complaints and these public records requests. It's exhausting.
Members, any questions? Senator Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't have a question, but I do want to applaud you for having the backbone to stand up against that, and to just let you know that we've got plenty of jobs down here, houses you can buy. You know, it's heartbreaking to hear what you're facing, and what your kids and the kids of that state are going through. So again, kudos. If we don't have people willing to stand up, and there's a price that you're paying, that's obvious. I mean, you paid a price just to come to Arizona, but the price you're paying, I appreciate that. We need more people across our country that will stand up for what's right and resist when we have to. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Members, any questions? Senator Bartow.
Mr. Chairman, Nicole, you've given voice to so many parents across the country about this problem. I applaud you as well. Thank you for coming. I do wonder, did you start with a public records request, or did you?
No, this started with a phone call to my principal of my school. And when I had more questions that they didn't like, that's when they told me to submit public records requests. I also emailed them. They wouldn't respond to my emails. And they were really clear that public records requests were the only way that they would answer my questions. And they were working with me with a lot of requests. They would say, oh, you know, you requested this. Did you mean that? And then one day I just woke up to find my name on their agenda of their school board meeting saying that they were going to discuss suing Nicole Solis for submitting over 160 public records requests. So It was really an attack on me. And I think it was a message that they wanted to send to other parents that if you want transparency, or if you even just want to know what your kindergartner is learning in school, that they'll retaliate against you and punish you for asking for that transparency. So that's why I think it's really important that we have legislation that will mandate schools to be transparent, because parents are going to be afraid to ask after what happened to me. And I'm here to say, don't be afraid, fight back. And there are things we can do to solve this problem.
Thank you again.
Thanks.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Yes, Senator Marsh.
I was just wondering if in Rhode Island you have a parent bill of rights like we do here, because we have a pretty robust parental bill of rights. And I'm just wondering what the correlation might be. Like, I'm not sure I'm seeing the connection between Rhode Island and what's going on in Arizona, but.
Yeah, well, the Goldwater Institute is representing me in this lawsuit that the teachers union brought against me for these public records requests. I don't think we have a parent bill of rights, but I'm certainly going to bring it back to Rhode Island, this idea, and see if we can get something like that going. Instead of a parent bill of rights, we certainly have a lot of rights and laws for teachers unions that tend to trample on the rights of parents. So Rhode Island is, you're right, quite different from Arizona.
Okay, so a couple of clarifying points, and then there's actually a couple of points that I disagree with her on that she actually brought up. First of all, she apparently was based in Rhode Island, and she was speaking to either congressional or senatorial committee in Arizona. With that aside, this notion that schools need to be saved from themselves is completely ridiculous. They do not need to be saved from themselves. They need to be destroyed because of their own weight and their own stupidity that is falling down on top of their heads, and all you have to do is step aside and let them do it. That's kind of my first point. My second point is that open records requests are not useless. It's quite the opposite. This is where you catch them engaging in illegality. Serious illegality and ethics violations as well. They do this out in the open. I catch them doing this all the time. I file the proper paperwork. I know exactly how to do it. It's not difficult. But again, you can read these exchanges back and forth, and you can eventually get these individuals out of their office and out of their elected position because they're violating ethics and codes of conduct. Now, even with that aside, the third point is that open records requests do not cost the district any money. If they tell you they do, they're lying to you. An open records request is a lawful request from a citizen toward an entity such as a school district, specifically, of course, because it's government. It doesn't cost government money to actually have you submit an open records request. It is literally your right. You're allowed to do it. Now, will it cost them ink and paper? Well, of course it will. But that's their problem. That's taxpayer dollars and that's taxpayer money anyway. Who cares? Do they have to hire another assistant to again read through these particular requests and make redactions and so on and so on? Sure, probably. Who cares? The amount of money that gets wasted from school districts on a day in and year out basis is astounding. They steal money all of the time. They give money away to charitable causes for no reason whatsoever. I know they would say, of course, it's charity and they get to do that. No, they don't. They're a multi-million-dollar corporation. They don't get to give money away to political causes or other companies or local groups or what have you. That is not what a school district is supposed to be doing. A school district is supposed to keep any school district related money for said school district. That's it. It's for the employees. It's to keep the lights on. That's the whole point. But they steal and they launder money. And this happens, again, consistently. Not to mention the simple retaliatory factors that this woman engaged in when it came to the way that she was treated by the teachers union and then, of course, the school board plastering her name all over an agenda and attempting to attack her and 1,000 other things. I mean, that's a lawsuit in and of itself. Now, I don't know how long ago that audio clip was because some of those, Arizona politicians were still wearing masks on their faces. But either way, no one in the crowd was, but some of the nitwits on the dais were. Point being is that the vast majority, I think, of certain areas now have laws on the books with parental bill of rights. Certainly Arizona does, and Ohio does, for example, where, again, any parent has the right to see exactly what's being taught. But like I said, the way that she was treated should prove the illegality and the sneaky behavior and the scheming and the meddling that's taking place on the part of a school district. They are criminal organizations. Period. Always have been, always will be, and they're getting worse. And because they're becoming more of a criminal organization, all the more reason for open records requests, because you will catch these idiots quite literally emailing each other their own illegality and their own scheming and their own meddling. So I highly recommend it. You should do it for the amount of money that they spend. Again, just ask for a draw out and a full out printing of all of the money that they have spent on issues, regardless of what the issue is, within the last calendar year, within the last school year. Anything from $15,000 all the way down on any one particular item, and watch how much money gets spent and on what and where it gets sent to and 1,000 other things. I'm telling you, there's information there to be had. Hell, I'm still waiting for open records requests from the first week of May. And here it is, June 17th when I'm recording this? That's a little too long. And one of those open records requests was one piece of paper. I'm requesting literally one piece of paper that the districts should have in their possession, and they're not forking it over. Why is that? I bet they don't have it. I bet they got rid of it. That's too bad. That's getting rid of evidence. You're getting rid of evidence. This is, again, how you can catch these people. It's very easy to do. They're not smart. They're incredibly stupid. They get terrible legal advice, and they literally believe that smearing people publicly is somehow the best revenge. Or it justifies their own behavior in some way. It doesn't. It's quite the opposite. It makes them look more guilty than they already are, and they do it all the time. And they're not learning. But again, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering again about the current case here regarding the elementary school principal, Jason Mers, in the town where I live. I'm just going to put it this way. There's a lot of moving parts right now. Still, again, exhausting numerous avenues here. I can tell you for a fact that the school district is interested in actually bringing him back. But that's not going to happen. The amount of legal peril that they would be in if they bring him back is astounding. They have no idea what mistake they would actually be making, which again should prove to you how stupid these people are. It's incredible. But they're getting caught in the process, which is the funniest part. So I'm just going to leave it at that right now, but believe me, this is going to get interesting real quick, real soon. With that said, let me mention this in conclusion, jab-related things. Does everybody remember back in the day, we, of course, were called crazy people and conspiracy theorists and every other name in the book. But do you remember when the COVID jabbed were having metal objects stick to them? Remember all of that video footage? You could put paper clips on them, full-blown utensils, a number of other objects, and they would actually stick to the people who were injected. This has now been scientifically proven in a peer-reviewed published article in the International Journal of Innovative Research in Medical Science this month, published June 1st, titled Clinical Manifestations of Latrogenic Magnetism in Subjects After Receiving COVID-19 Injectables, Case Report Series. Here's the abstract, and then I want to get into some of the specifics and some of these individuals who, again, were having metal stick to them. The video evidence, by the way, is overwhelming, and it's been out there since 2020, since the end of 2020 when the shots first came out. The abstract says the following, quote, a series of cases of COVID-19 vaccine-injected patients suffering from latrogenic magnetism is described. The attachment of massive metallic objects up to 70 grams to different parts of the body is a real phenomenon that may present additional health risks if such patients are subjected to magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI. It goes on, it says the heterogenic magnetism phenomenon typically occurs or appears rather, several months after the injection. It says more likely injected DNA plasmids or modified mRNAs translated into the spike protein or into junk peptides formed through frame shifts may engender proteins with ferromagnetic properties or may entrap indigenous iron. Importantly, the spike protein has a distant homology to hepcidin, there we go, the key regulator of iron metabolism. It says redistribution of iron into the brain or other body parts may be causing iterogenic magnetism. Pfizer vaccine lots starting with the letter F may be involved, although we cannot exclude the possibility that Moderna or other manufacturers' injections may also cause this phenomenon. In our observation, it says the magnetism may resolve spontaneously or when nicotinamide, adenine, deculide, no way I get that right, NAD+, is applied. It says our pilot observation needs to be corroborated in a larger cohort study. So here's also where they break this down more specifically as well. This is from the focalpoints.com Substack here, Courageous Discourse, and this is from a Nicholas Hulsher, and it was titled again, Breaking Peer-Reviewed Study Documents Post-Vaccine Magnetism. Let me get again into some of the specifics here. It says laterogenic magnetism is real and clinically observable. Patients in this series demonstrated the attachment of ferromagnetic objects, for example, spoons or magnets, to the skin, particularly the forehead, temples, chest, and shoulders. This effect was physically verified by researchers, often with photo documentation. It says number 2, symptoms emerge months after vaccination. Onset occurred typically 1 to 20 months post-injection, suggesting the phenomenon is not caused by residual components in the injection site, but possibly from genetic expression or systemic distribution. Number 3, potential mechanism involving iron and spike protein. Number 4, vaccine lot correlation, or again, Pfizer lots beginning with the letter F or overrepresented in the case observed. And number 5, clinical effects and reversibility. It says some patients also experience neurological and cardiovascular systems, such as arrhythmias, tremors, and cognitive decline. In at least 2 cases, oral NAD supplementation 500 milligrams per day appeared to resolve or reduce symptoms, including magnetism. And then they have 6 cases here. Case number 1. A 53-year-old male with no prior magnetism developed magnetic adhesion of a 25-gram object to both temples about 15 months after receiving 2 Pfizer injections, lot EY3014 and FE3065. He experienced chest pain, arrhythmia, full-body tremors, cognitive impairment, and other systemic symptoms. Case number 2. A previously healthy 39-year-old female developed magnetism in her forehead and right shoulder at the injection site around 1 month after receiving a single Pfizer dose, lot FL4574. A 42-gram metal object adhered to her forehead, causing pain. Symptoms lessened with alcohol and intensified during grounding. Number 3. A 28-year-old female developed magnetism approximately 20 months after receiving 2 Pfizer injections, lot FE2296 and FH0161. A 45-gram metal object adhered to her forehead, temple, and chest, but the magnetism faded over time, possibly due to self-initiated NAD therapy 500 milligrams per day. Case number 4. A 28-year-old male reported magnetism of a 42-gram metal object to his left temple and rib cage around 20 months post-injection with both Pfizer, lot FH9951, and Moderna lot 3004494. Cognitive symptoms and visual disturbances during MRI resolved with NAD but relapsed after discontinuation. And case 5, it says, a 35-year-old previously healthy male, spouse of case 2, developed magnetism 2 months after receiving the Pfizer vaccine lot FL4574. I wonder if that's Florida FL, not sure. Anyway, it says a 70-gram metal object adhered to his forehead, chest, and shoulder opposite the injection site with no improvement from food or medication. And then finally, case 6, a 36-year-old female developed strong magnetism, 25-gram object adhered to her sternum 1 month after receiving Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, lot 1F1012A and 3006274. Her unvaccinated 10-year-old son also developed similar chest-localized magnetism, raising the possibility of vaccine-related shedding. It's so exhausting, isn't it? Isn't it exhausting knowing about this stuff years in advance? Quite literally as it's happening, with video documented evidence, verbal evidence, oral evidence of these individuals describing this, and of course showing you, not just with pictures, but with actual video back in the day. And then you show this video to people and their instant thought or their instant, again, verbal response is, well, that must be fake. You're lying. No, we were just telling people because we knew exactly what we were watching. Now, again, they're claiming that the magnetism has less to do with the actual injection and the substances within the injection, less so rather than it does what the chemicals inside of the injection cause the iron that already exists in the body to end up doing, which of course is cluster within specified locations of the body. I would say it could be both. There's certainly metal inside of the shots themselves, metal that doesn't not belong in your body because metal doesn't belong in your body. But again, it doesn't matter which way you slice it, it's all bad. And that was happening back then, which means what do you think is happening now for the people who are still receiving shots? See, they don't even know that this is a thing. We've known this for what? Almost 4 years now, 5 years actually. But they don't even know that this actually exists, which means what are the odds of them going home and sticking a spoon up to their forehead? I mean, they're probably not going to do it. Although if they did, it might work. Even today. I'm telling you, the only test that matters is the test of time. I've said it 1,000 times. You know this to be true. You just let a little time pass and all of a sudden, whoops, look at that. Even though, again, the evidence was already out there. So I will include that scientific article in the long list of COVID-related, quote-unquote COVID-related articles that exist under the medical documents tab of my website, AmericanEducationFM.com, if you are interested in checking that out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening as always, and I'll catch you on Friday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.